What is going on, everybody? It is Eric Pate here, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Big Bayou Canot rail accident that took place. Now, you guys know me. I like to talk about commercial disasters sometimes on this channel. So today, and normally about planes, but today we touched on Titanic once. I think that's the only disaster on this channel we had touched on that did not involve a plane crash. Speaking of plane crash, in the near future, one of the plane crash videos I did make a video on is going to be remade. I haven't decided if it's going to be a remade of a what if, or are we just going to do a general information one like this one is today. We're going to talk about a quick overview, the train involved. Like, we're actually going to go into like what the consist looks like. I'm going to do my best drawing of the consist. If you get what I mean, we're going to do our best drawing of said consist. That's the actual word. Why it was delayed in New Orleans. The Muvella. You may go to Google right now and look up Muvella and see that it was not a train and see it was a tugboat. I will explain why we are going to be talking about a tugboat later on in this video. The Muvella hitting the bridge, because that's how the first part happened. The effect of the collision with the rail part of the bridge. We're not going to talk about it. Real quick, I'm going to say it didn't hit very hard, but it still caused some real effects. The disaster striking, when we get to that portion, I will tell you guys what happened. Then we're going to go over to my TV and take a look on what happened. The rescue efforts, and we're going to talk about the investigation, because I believe that's the two shortest sections, and we're just going to combine them both. Well, besides a quick overview, but yeah, investigation on like what was found, and talk about part of the rescue and changes since this incident. I did my section did color code like each part on how we can talk about this accident. So let's talk about a quick overview. Alright, so let's get into the quick overview. Early morning on September 22nd, 1993, Amtrak train number 2, which is a train that still runs to this day, but a totally different route. The Sunset Limited, I did not write it on here though, that it was going from Los Angeles over to Miami, crashed after it derailed on CSX Transportation Big Bayou Canot Bridge after a tugboat collided with the bridge 8 minutes prior. As a result, 47 deaths, which was the worst in Amtrak history, and we had a total of 103 people injured. So we'll talk more about like how this disaster unfolded, how these people died and got injured. So we'll talk about. Let's get into now the involved train of this incident. I forgot I closed my bedroom door. Didn't mean to. My cat's out here, and his litter box is in my bedroom. Alright. So let's get into the concept of the Sunset Limited. Now, let's go ahead and quickly describe the Sunset Limited real quick. So, in fact, train number 2, like we said, is the Sunset Limited. Left Los Angeles from Miami 3 days prior to this incident on September 19th of 1993. Left for Miami. The concepts involved, I did my best drawing. Let me fix this straight line here just a little bit. Okay. So this is my best drawing. Now the top part is the first half of the train, and the bottom part is the second half of the train. Sorry, I'm using a Kool-Aid container for my markers because I'm not going to bother buying one. You need a container for it. So, the three engines involved were P40MC number 819. If you have been on a train with Amtrak recently, the train is normally operated by P42. That's what basically 819 looked like. EMD 262 and EMD 3112. F40PH 262 and 3112. My crappy drawings wouldn't do its justice on like what you guys aren't going to try and know what it is. So I wrote it in order on based on what it is. So as the top three here, like I said, are three locomotives, followed by a baggage car, a crew lounge, or crew dorm, same difference, three coaches, a passenger lounge car, or if you have ridden on, like we'll say, the California Zephyr, I think Southwest Chief has it, quite a few Amtrak trains have it. Long distance Amtrak train has what is known as the Sightseer Lounge. At the time, it was just called, I have the exact name right here, High Level Lounge Car, which basically had windows going from the top to the bottom of the train, a dining car, and a sleeper. At the time of the accident, there were 220 people on board. Let's get into the... I'm not saying that... Okay, let's get into the first factor that may have played into this accident. At about 10 p.m. on September 21st, the train made a routine stop in New Orleans for about an hour. And this stop in New Orleans, at the time of this incident, we will discuss why it's not that way anymore. You'll probably, I would say more information about it at the end of the video on why we don't do that anymore. But the train terminates in New Orleans now. Hey Junior, sorry, my cat. The train now terminates in New Orleans. It does not go all the way to Miami. There are people to this day that wants the train to go back to Miami. I am personally one of them, but I also understand why. It was but a routine hour-long stop turned to an hour and 34-minute stop because it was while it was in New Orleans, it was discovered air conditioner and a toilet weren't working properly. Maintenance came on board, fixed them both, and after about an hour, after it being delayed for 34 minutes, the train was underway again. Now, I literally just said a couple seconds ago, this could have played a factor. This is factor number one, I think. And I will tell you guys at the end of the video if this train was not delayed, would it still had crashed. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. Alright, okay, so instead of barges being pushed by tugboat Movilla, operated by the Warrior in Gulf Navigation in Chickasaw, Alabama, it was steaming down the Mobile River. The driver, Willie Odom, wasn't experienced with radar and wasn't as trained. That's what I meant. Oh yeah, I had that written. I don't know why I erased that. That's why I like having this, because if I need to change something for you guys on the fly, I can just do it. It had limited visibility. A lack of a compass also caused him to be off course. Now this is my best drawing again. This is like a bird's eye view. Not my best drawing of the 6 barges and the Movilla. Now we're going to get into the ultimate cause of the accident. So this was the ultimate cause of the accident due to the Movilla being off course a little bit. It was supposed to continue down the Mobile. It's supposed to take a right down the Mobile River. Instead, it took a left and went into the Big Bayou. That was the actual name. Another crappy drawing by me. Just a couple crappy drawings by me. So, okay, real quick, Odom did see something on the radar, and so he was trying to reverse just in case it was another boat or a bridge. Unfortunately, he found out the hard way that it was a bridge. This is how he knew it was a bridge. We'll get to that in just a second. We'll get to that here in a minute. Sorry, I'm throwing I have a pen I'm using for my markers for this video, and I was just throwing that in. The impact was enough to wake Captain Andrew Stabler of the Mobile up. He went to the pilot room to check on it, to ask Odom what happened. In an interview, actually, Andrew Stabler said that he knows a pretty shaken Willie Odom, and he and Odom managed to reverse the boat and got it to a river bank. That's what this drawing down here is them pulling off into a bank. Now, this is like after the collision with the bridge. I don't know like where exactly on the Movella hit the bridge. This is just a rough estimate. Like I think it was like close to right here, because the train just entered the bridge when it flew off the tracks, which we're actually going to talk about in just a second. In just a couple minutes. Let's now talk about what kind of impact the derails have when the train came to the bridge. No. After the collision. When the train came to the bridge, we'll get to that in just a couple minutes, but right now we're going to get into the effect of the Movella hitting the bridge on the rails. So the impact was enough to like we just mentioned last part, it was enough to disconfigure the tracks. I forgot to draw this, but I probably should. So, again, not my best drawings. So imagine looking at here. Oh, okay. That signal's still green. This is the closest signal. We'll say this is the closest signal to the bridge. The impact was enough to disconfigure the bridge about 3 feet. The track about 3 feet. The impact somehow was not enough to change the signal from green to red. It should have been changed from green to red. At 2:51, the train passed the closest signal, like we said, at 2:51 a.m. About a mile and a half away from the bridge and the place tracks. We're going to talk about in just a second what happened 2 minutes later when the train made it to the bridge. And we're also going to take a look at what happened when the train made it to the bridge. Alright, let's get into the next part. Okay, so we mentioned that 2:51 a.m. where we left off, that the train passed the last signal before the disconfigured bridge and it was still green. So, we're now going to talk about what happened at 2:53 when the train made it to the bridge. So, locomotives 819, 262, and 312 went airborne when it hit the disconfigured part of the track. Half of the train went into the river. Locomotive 819 slammed into the other side of the bayou and buried itself in about 46 feet of mud. Engineer was killed on impact. 262 and 312 They also went to the other side of the bayou because they weren't too far behind. 3112's fuel tank ruptured and caused a fire. All but the diner and sleeper cars went into the river. All passenger cars went into the river, except for the diner and sleepers. Passengers who were awake, they said that it felt like a lifetime, even though the actual impact took just a couple seconds. We're going to take a look here in just a couple minutes on what actual, kind of what took place and give my own analysis on what happened at 2:53 in the morning. We're on September 22nd. Passengers that weren't awake were woken up by this. I mean, how could you sleep through a train crash, a passenger train crash? How could you sleep through that? The diner car was in front of the sleeper car, and it had its front wheels dangling off the tracks on where the bridge was. Let's go ahead and go over here for a second. Let me move a couple things out of the way real quick. Okay. We're going to turn off the lights for this part, because this is a pretty dark animation. Dark by in lighting of animation. So we're going to have the lights off. Okay? Not dark as in it's scary, dark as in it's... Sorry, I dropped the camera in the process, did not mean to do that. Actually, let's hold the camera. Alright, y'all ready? Okay. So, again, peaceful night on the night of September 21st and September 22nd. Just a peaceful night. Train rushing through the night like it routinely does when it runs this route through Mobile. Everything's going perfect. We're now at the bridge, and next thing you know, 819 basically lifts off like a plane, and the next thing you know, 819 completely gets off the track and right into the other side of the bayou, with the other two locomotives not too far behind, and basically the whole contest, except for, like I said, except for the last two cars, are in the river. Again, instantly killing the engineer. A couple other people died on impact. So, I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Well, for you guys, it can be for a couple seconds, but for me, it'll be a couple minutes at least to get down the next two sections, which is the investigation and rescue. And investigation, I decided to combine them both for this next part on what all was involved in investigation and rescue efforts and whatnot. Let's just say the boat that caused this accident was involved in the rescue. I'll be back in a couple minutes. So, I decided to combine two sections into one because these two sections are relatively short, and I could just go ahead and get them both knocked out right now. The next section is going to be a little bit more multicolored at the beginning of the video was. Alright, see, so I don't know if it was as soon as the train crashed or whatever, but CXX dispatchers and crew members of the Amtrak train, more specifically also the train supervisor, called 911 to let them know that there was a train crash. I actually listened to a recording yesterday of this, and I was watching a documentary on it yesterday. The dispatcher could not believe it when the train supervisor called 911 and said that he was on an Amtrak train and that the train is in the river. and the dispatcher could not believe what she was hearing. Now, we know Movella hit the bridge earlier. In that video we literally just watched a couple minutes ago, at one point it showed that Movella's point of view on what happened. And luckily, same thing happened with US Airways Flight 1549, where a couple ferries saw the plane go down, and then they raced over to come help the passengers and crew of Flight 1549, and that's how everyone managed to survive. Because a couple ferries that were like rescue ferries or anything, they just deployed the main overboard ladder and took the passengers and crew from 1549. This is what the Movella basically did, was they saw the crash, disconnected their barges, and went over there. And they managed to get 17 people out. Imagine if they didn't do that. The death toll wouldn't have been 47, it would have been... okay. I just grabbed the random color. We're doing some math real quick. 64. If the Movella crew didn't do that. Recently, I think I heard that the death toll rise to 48 because somebody recently passed away from injuries from this specific accident. Like I said, 47 people passed away in this accident. A good chunk of them was from drowning. There were some that died on impact, there's 3 engineers on the train. All 3 of them died on impact. Some were burned alive, and some were on fire, in smoke. One crew member was burned alive. Passengers actually tried to get in and save others. I can make a suggestion right now. This is what I would do if something like this was to happen to me, and I survived. Or we'll say if I was on Flight 232 on July 19th of 1989. We'll say for example, sorry, I'm just pulling an example here. If you get involved in a commercial accident, be it a commercial transportation accident, and you somehow survived, yes, technically you're supposed to wait for first responders so they can start open looking for survivors. Now, if you think you're good enough, like if you are walking, if you feel like you have the strength, what you should do is start looking for survivors yourself. That's what most of these passengers were doing. I've seen plane crashes on plane crash documentaries I've watched to where everyone survived. But that was because most of the passengers were helping each other out. And one I saw specifically was with Flight 232. That's why I brought up Flight 232. This guy who runs a basketball thing for a college, I think. Was it? I don't know. He did something with basketball. He was the chairman for a basketball association. Jerry Schimmel was his name. And he said he remembered being upside down. He said he remembered going out of the plane, and then he heard a chop, and then he decided that, okay, I'm alive, I'm not in heaven, I'm going back in the plane. He went back into the plane to try to look for survivors, and he managed to rescue, I think, a baby. He managed to rescue a baby in the process. In the Delta incident that happened earlier this year, passengers were helping each other, was trying to find each other to evacuate the plane, and all of them ended up surviving in Toronto. Anyway, enough ranting. I just want to make a suggestion saying if you ever get involved in a transportation incident and you happen to survive, the best thing to do is try to help your fellow passengers out, even if you don't know them. because passengers were actually trying to rescue a crew member that was in the crew lounge, and he ended up burning to death. Okay, so the black is what was found in the investigation, what the NTSB said. There was quite a few things. I do want to say one thing. Even though, so let's go ahead and talk about human error. There was no human error. They determined that the Movilla, that when the Movilla got lost, they couldn't really know if they were lost or not because of weather conditions at the time. NTSB, now the company that owned the NTSB said that it was weather. Now the company that owns the Movilla, by the way, they said that that they, I think, settled out of court for like almost $2 million. So yeah, even though there was no human error, and it was mainly weather. Also, they found out that the bridge was missing some parts. So this bridge was supposed to be part swing, part in a couple different things, but the key thing we need to know is supposed to be part swing. Now, part swing means is like how my hands are. If you look at my arms, here, my arms is the bridge. Drop my hat there. My arms is the bridge. We'll say it's a full swing bridge, okay? So if there's a boat coming through, the single turns red. The closest single will turn red. And then what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to swing open and be parallel to the river. And they found out that it was missing parts for it to be a swing bridge. And it was classified as one, but it wasn't one because it was missing parts. And then earlier when I mentioned when the train was delayed in New Orleans, I wanted you to keep to the back of your mind on what would have happened if the train was not delayed. Would the disaster still would have taken place? No. The NTSB concluded that without the 34 extra minutes in New Orleans, the train spent in New Orleans, it had a 23-minute cushion. If it was delayed only 23 minutes, it would have crossed the bridge safely. So instead of crossing the bridge at 2:53 a.m., the boat hit the bridge at 2:45. They said that 23 minutes before the boat hit the bridge, the train would have made it safely across the bridge. I don't think the collision with the bridge would have been avoidable. Thick fog, because like I said, thick fog, lack of train with radar, lack of a compass. So we're actually going to get into that in just a second on the changes that were made since this accident. Alright, so changes that have been made since, and one of these changes, I would say the wreck had something to do with the change, but what ultimately caused the change actually happened 12 years later. So, all tugboat pilots must be fully trained with radar. After this incident, the NTSB said all tugboat pilots have to be fully trained with radar. They must have a compass and map with them as well. Anytime tugboat pilots are in the tugboat, they have to have a compass and map every single time. The bridge that got damaged was repaired. It is still being used today by CSX transportation only. We'll get into that in just a few moments. The next thing was pretty obvious. All 3 locomotives were scrapped and written off. All passenger cars that were in the water were also scrapped and written off. Now, 819 was only 20 days old at the time of the incident. At least that's what I've heard. Was locomotive 819 was only 20 days old at the time of the incident. I think I heard that this was like its first trip or whatever. So the two cars that managed to stay on track, they were repaired. The dining car still actually has some scars from that fatal night. Okay, so I would say this crash didn't really have an effect on it, but what ultimately caused it was, I said, happened 12 years later. So 93 was when this incident occurred, 1993. Roughly about 12 years later, more specifically, I don't want to get my facts wrong. So Hurricane Katrina what caused the Sunset Limited to get shortened to New Orleans. Okay, so exactly 11 years, 11 months after the accident that Hurricane Katrina hit, and Hurricane Katrina is what caused the Sunset Limited to get shortened back to New Orleans. Now, this wasn't really a change. I was told between Mobile and Orlando, or is it Mobile and New Orleans? I don't remember what the documentary said. But what would cause it to get extended to New Orleans is currently suspended right now. But do I think it should go back to Los Angeles to Miami? I think so. They just need. I think another route should get figured out besides going through Mobile. But at the same time, I want to get it. I want it to at least go to Orlando, not just Miami, but Orlando. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, favorite. Be nice, cool, be awesome. Eric Pate, don't hate. See you later.